Hey, everybody. Welcome to Are We There Yet podcast. I'm your host, Susan Ruth.
And I'm your host, Mara Adelman. And we are two humans who are having the real conversations and raising all those questions that we all have about where there really is when it comes to dating, relationships, and sex. We're still figuring it out. We're here to help you figure it out.
Absolutely. And today's episode is That's Not My Name.
That's not my name. That's not my name.
That's not my name.
So we're talking about slow dating, which oftentimes involves dating multiple people. Hence that's not my name.
That's not my name.
Have you ever done that?
Let's dive in a little bit to what slow dating is, because I think like multiple people think that means polyamory. It doesn't mean that at all. So why don't could you explain maybe to everybody listening and watching what that means?
Yeah. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to this one, Single Smart Female. She's adorable. And she talks about man-tourage dating. And it just clicked with me that the part of the problem is it's like you meet somebody, you think it's amazing, you're meeting their representative, you move forward and you move too fast. And all of a sudden you're 3 months in and you're like, whoa, red flags or whatever's been missed. And so I want to slow date. I don't do a good job of it. You're going to explain to us how you can learn to try to change that mindset. But it's really about taking it slow enough and getting to know people slowly and casually before you jump in. Yeah. I'll link, and I will link to her. We will link to her podcast, because I just think it's a good concept to be aware of, that it's okay for women to date more than one person. We're not talking about jumping into bed with everybody. Get to knowing people slowly.
But it's okay too.
Oh, that is okay too. Oh, totally. I am not one to judge.
Yeah. But yeah, so for me, I am, as what do you call it, an avoidant personality. Mm-hmm. So even when I have chemistry with someone and I like somebody, I'm still going to take my time, and I might have chemistry with a couple different people and, see what people are all about. I think part of that is my own armor, and just understanding that I want to wait to see who somebody actually is. I'm all about show me, don't tell me. I appreciate that you think you're all these things, and I need to see that you're these things before I accept that necessarily. And to be fair, you should also want that of me. Like, I might say something and you don't know me yet. My biggest thing is like, wow, you don't even know me yet, and you just automatically want to spend all this time with me. That freaks me out. I am not a love bomber.
Yeah. Yeah. But being love bombed is like those people that are like super hyper focused and moving in fast. And
I don't trust that. I don't trust it at all.
I know it's happened to me a couple of times where I was just kind of like, it felt amazing in the moment, but then later I'm like, wait, you don't even know me. Mm-hmm. You don't even know if you like me.
Definitely. I'm the Groucho Marx of it. I wouldn't want to be in the club that would have me as a member.
That's saying yes, 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 and yes. Yeah. Also, though, I think slow dating allows you to have a better chance when you meet the right person to have it work in a relationship. Because what happens when you start too fast? Then you have sex too fast. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about first time sex and all that. I think that's our podcast in a couple of weeks. It's like, you got to have sex with somebody. Now you've got all the hormones and now you're hyper focused. Well, I, especially as an anxious attachment person, will get a little more hyper focused at that point, because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is what I'm looking for. And so you get hyper focused and it screws everything up. So it makes more sense to just take it slow with everybody and maybe multiple people at the same time. Although it always drives me crazy. She talks about it all the time, like have 3 in rotation. You hear this all the time on dating podcasts. I have a hard time finding more than one other person that I like enough to like really want to go on a date with. So yeah.
I think it might be because your expectations, you're trying to, I think you talked about it in another episode about the mountain or the triangle or the iceberg or something like that.
Because I'm a romanticizer and I think it should look like this to be the right thing.
Yeah. And I think that's what trips you up, is that I think you have this expectation of what it's supposed to look like. And then if it kind of resembles that, you go all in. Yeah. Which is lovely and beautiful that you want to do that. But I think that it can get you into trouble, because then you're putting your expectations on this person, and then what if they're avoidant, or what if they're just like, whoa, I'm not in that space. And then it feels like too much, freaking people out,
Totally. And the other, yes, all of that.
So what if you were like that with 3 people?
I know. Here's the problem though. This is horrible. I'm at a stage, we've talked about this. I'm at a stage in my life where I would rather just go sit on the beach with my dogs and be left alone.
Yeah,
So
I get that
for
too.
me to spend time with somebody, it needs to be interesting. I need to be more interested than that. So I am going to learn from you and go slower, but probably not with 3 or 4. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Not that that's what you're doing. I'm just saying I'm going to work on that on myself. I pulled this out the other day, the rules, like 1996 copyrighted, and it makes sense. Don't go on
that old ass book.
Old. And I revisited some of it though, because I remember when I read it. Look, this was like probably the first dating book I ever read. It's all marked. There was a couple things in it that still hold true to me, which is don't go on more than 1 date a week in the beginning. Slow it down. One date a week, get to know each other.
Like, yes, immediately. Huh? I mean, it's like if somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" If you just met them, say, "Nothing with you, buddy." You know?
Rule, which is if you don't hear from somebody by Wednesday to ask you off for the weekend, you're already busy, which is true. How often are you not already knowing what you're doing and busy by Wednesday?
Yeah, unless you really, I mean, look, none of this stuff is a hard, fast rule, and it's not playing games, it's establishing boundaries. To me, that's about boundaries.
It's about boundaries.
Your time is valuable, you know.
It's about how you want to be treated in the future. It's about boundaries. It's also about reminding yourself to have a busy, full life. You should have some stuff going on the weekend, right? It isn't about playing games. I always have a lot going. I mean,
I have so much going on.
I know. So, but still, when I meet that right person, I will be in the habit of dropping. Oh, do I have that going on, or could I kind of move that to maybe hang out with this guy I like a lot? So I'm gonna work on that and do things. I'm gonna listen to the rules, and I'm gonna listen to you. Slow it down.
Yeah, because I'm so successful in love.
Well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna wherever there is, we will get there eventually.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it all looks like for me. Like I've said this before. And so I don't really worry about it too much. I feel like I'll know it when I see it. But until then, and my biggest frustration, like I had an experience with someone and it felt like it was a very long time of not, and I kind of brought this up in another episode of like the sort of come here, go away, the breadcrumbing type situation. But having so much chemistry and wanting to really be with this person, but also saying, I don't need to have you be my significant other. Can we just experience intimacy
together?
And see where that takes us. It doesn't have to, it can be great friends that also have sex. That does exist. It can exist. I think you believe less that exists, but I
had a situationship like that for many years that worked pretty good. Younger. I mean, we made it work for a bit until we didn't, then we did, you know.
Have you ever monogamously dated more than one person at the same time? So like when you're with them, but you're also with them when you're with them, and they knew about each other and that kind of thing. Have you ever done that?
No, not to that regard. I mean, I've had sex with multiple people who, you know, casually, but not necessarily dating. If I'm dating somebody, I take it more seriously. It feels like I'm dating that person, then I'm not going to go do. Oh, I did one time. I was dating somebody casually and I met this other guy, and then he saw us kissing in a bar and was furious. And I was like, why are you furious? You wanted to keep it casual. That is something
they get jealous.
Oh, so jealous. I am totally finding on most of the dating apps that a lot of men are putting casual when what they're looking for, right? And so one guy, I even sent him a message. I was like, okay, so curious, like if you hit it off with somebody and you have the chemistry and the compatibility and all of those things, would it be a bit more than casual? And his response was like, oh, it sounds like my definition of casual is too ambiguous for you. And I just left it alone. I was like, I was asking you, what does that actually mean to you? Because I'm okay with starting things out casually, but if it lines up, then you move a little faster, right? Then maybe you decide that you're only going to date each other and see where it goes.
How fast do you get sucked into something?
When all those things line up, it can happen pretty fast, which I'm going to work on, because we've talked about it's not the healthiest thing. And because you're meeting their representative, like you've mentioned and I've mentioned. And what's the Maya Angelou quote? When people show you who they are, believe them. Yeah. And so I do this thing where it's like, oh, you're already in a little too deep. Now they're showing you who they are. No, but wait, it feels right, but wait. And then who's the guy we love? Oh, Matthew Hussey. He's adorable.
I love him.
Says you've got to get rid of the wrong guy before you have room for the right guy. And so I don't personally find myself wanting to stick in something if it's not going to be right.
Sure.
But if you move too fast, it's too late. You're already in, you're already invested. So again, protect your heart, protect your soul, protect your body. What if you're having sex with somebody and it's too fast and they're not being truthful about what else they're doing, right? So yeah,
that's a big one, but there's no guarantee in that anyway. I've dated, like, I dated one summer, I dated two guys, and they both knew that, you know, that the other existed. They'd never met or anything, but when they both lived in different states.
Wow.
So when one would come to visit, I was with them, and when the other came to visit, I was with them. And again, everything's safe.
Oh, and open. Everybody knew, radical honesty. Everybody knew about it.
Radical honesty. And then one of them said to me, "Hey, I want to take this to the next level. I don't want this just to be a fling. I want to actually have you be my girlfriend."
Yep.
And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, that's okay. I'm okay with that. And so I ended it with the other guy.
Yep.
And pursued a relationship with the one, and he ended up cheating.
Right?
Yeah. So what he wanted was for me not to be fucking anybody else, but what he wanted for himself was to be able to fuck other people.
Right? So you're right. No matter how slow you take it,
doesn't matter.
Not have that guarantee. That is a true point. But I feel like, okay, so you take it slower, you have more time for those conversations around expectations, boundaries. What are you looking for? Do you want sex, companionship, or partnership? Right. And so I have dated a couple people where I felt like we had done that. Right. The hormones are all, you're all excited. I felt like we did the conversations a couple times in my life. But then you get a little further and maybe you weren't actually speaking the same language. So if you slow it down, you might understand each other a little bit better.
Yeah. I think that people are so terrible. Here's the thing that space does, that time and space does, is that it requires more communication. Communication is vulnerability, and people are not great with vulnerability. And so that's why I think people want to rush into things. They mask it under like, well, I want to make sure that I'm sexually compatible with this person. So, but I think that's kind of not a real thing.
No, I feel like
that's people who are afraid to take their time because of what it means.
Oh, sorry, Nixel again.
So there's a lot going on in your neighborhood.
I have 4 different neighborhoods because I've got family and friends, and I always have my Nixel app on, and then it's going to be noisy.
We got to get them to sponsor us.
Oh, we should see if they'll sponsor us. They
every time well, not every time, but for a few of these episodes, I think you've had that going, right? There's been stuff. Yeah.
This was a missing kid. The last one a couple of weeks ago. It goes off a lot, and I shouldn't pay as much attention to it, but I like to know what's going on.
Does it make you anxious?
No, I like to know what's going on. I used to do disaster preparedness at my clinic. And so for me to know that like Napa has a fire, I worked in Fairfield. I have Napa, Fairfield, Santa Rosa, Guerneville, where my dad is, so where my clinic is, like, so that when things are going down, I know about it. I'm like one of those, like, I think you talked about this. Oh, on that podcast you did, you run towards the fire. Like we're both the run towards the fire kind of take care of business people.
Which podcast was it? So many.
I wrote it down the other day because I
one where I was a guest.
You were a guest. What's that one called?
Was that in April? The one in April?
Yeah. What's the podcast called?
The one in April was a Story in Your Head.
That one. Yes. You had mentioned you were kind of like that.
I run toward the fire.
Yeah, me too. And
yeah,
I'm in trouble a couple times, but how do you not?
Yeah, I did a whole episode on that when I went to it went on my show on Hey Human. It's called When the Big Apple Bites Back, I think it's called. It's one of the earlier episodes in the first couple of years. I went to New York and had just the most crazy experience where I ran into danger, stupidly probably in retrospect, but it was when somebody needs you.
I know. What'd you do? Did you save somebody?
Which is how Ted Bundy got so many women. He pretended to be wounded, right? A broken arm.
Ew. We just did a couple weeks ago, we did our safety and dating plan. We should have added, we will add to now, make sure that you're not sucked in like, oh, somebody needs help. Because as women, we want to be, a lot of women are helpers. I used to work on an ambulance and the first thing they taught you was scene safety, right? hold on, is it safe for me to go do this? I still forget sometimes. Car accident, hold on, pull over, run towards the fire. But we do not need to run towards fast dating to bring it back to the topic.
That's right. Sorry, we got off topic.
No, I want to hear about that story someday. Like, I think, yeah. Anyway, I think we're going to slow it down and help other people realize they can slow it down too.
Another aspect of safety that is about vulnerability. How do you stay vulnerable and not retreat into fear? The fear of getting your heart broken, for example, because I think that's an aspect of safety too, that we want to protect our squishy little hearts.
Also, as far as the slow dating, a lot of people, like you said, are avoidant, so they slow it down because they don't want to get invested and give their hearts away because it's scary. But if you don't let your armor down, you're never going to get anywhere, right?
Well, I ask myself that a lot. You did not answer the question, by the way, but I do ask myself a lot that whether I am avoidant because I'm scared of getting my heart hurt, or am I avoidant because I know that people aren't always showing who they are. I feel like it's the latter, but it might be some of the previous as well.
You want to put your armor up to protect yourself. Yeah,
maybe
it's probably both. It's probably a little bit of
both. It's probably both.
What question did I not answer? I am here to be fully vulnerable, apparent, transparent, even when I don't want to be. What did I miss?
What do you do to protect yourself
against
heartbreak?
Oh, heartbreak. I tend, as an anxious person, to be too intense and move into it thinking that if I see ahead of the game and we talk about it enough, I did that with you with the podcast, remember? I was like, but no, hold on, let's iron everything out, because I want to make sure that I stop the pitfalls from happening. And I do it when I'm dating somebody, like, hold on, like, are we really compatible? Let's talk about these things, because if I can make sure that we're going to be okay, then my heart won't get hurt, right?
I remember I got frustrated with you way back when we were first figuring it out, because I felt like, God, we've already gone over this, and I got kind of bitchy about it. I was like, oh, remember we went over this already, and you're like, I don't know.
I was like, no, first I said we did, but it wasn't quite enough, and I want to make sure that we've really made sure we're doing the right thing. So that's how I think I protect myself, but it doesn't work.
But how beautiful was it that you said, hey, I'm trying to figure this out, don't be like that. And I was like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. I was being like that. You're right. I think we have this defense where we're like, oh, I didn't mean that, or, oh, you took it the wrong way, instead of saying, you're right, I was being kind of a jackass just now.
Such a good job. Like, I was so proud of our communication. So the other thing, so I'm hoping that we can teach, well, you and I will continue to always have good communication. If not, we'll talk about it. And also moving forward with people, like teaching other people how to communicate better. I feel like, what did I bring up to you? I was like, oh, well, once a week we should do a quick check-in and make sure that we haven't riled anybody's feathers. If you're slow dating, maybe it's okay to do a check-in, right? Where are we at? Are you still okay with me dating other people? I don't know. Do people? I do
things like that, definitely. In my entire dating history, I've always been like that, for sure. Where not a what is this, but in a more like, this is how I feel. How do you feel? Again, it's that thing that safety thing is also about vulnerability. And I think it's so hard for that radical honesty that you've talked about on a few different episodes, of just saying, this is how I feel. And the good news is, if the other person, I know that's terrifying. It's terrifying, because you think, I'm going to say this thing, and this other person might be like, I don't, whatever. That's okay. If they do that, that's great.
Yeah. It actually gives you a lot of information. So like, I tend to put it all out there. And if somebody's not responsive to that, then you're not my guy, right? Like, if you don't want to communicate, I find that I feel like there's like this epidemic of so many men, again, I'm generalizing, but that's my experience, that they can't be radically honest because they don't know what they want. They don't know how they feel, and they don't know what they mean.
Well, also to be able to say, hi, I'm Mara. I'm about to tell you all the things I want and need in this all at once. And it might go out. But I'm going to tell you why I need to do this. I need to do this because I'm vulnerable in these areas. These are my triggers. I think we don't give enough of the language. And so because if you're honest with somebody and you're like, but you don't say I am, because
Because I'm scared.
Because I'm
I like you.
And
Because
because
I need you to reassure me. I know.
and to articulate that.
Totally. Because we put our armor up.
Yeah.
We're like, oh no, you're not being responsible.
You have the information. And if we only give half the story, then all they have is all of their own experience.
You are so correctamundo.
Yeah. And so I think that's
counselor galore over here. Well done. So bottom line, we're going to take it slow.
All this.
You're going to teach me how to take it a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remind you that it's okay to let your armor down.
Yeah. And to say, hey, this is what makes me vulnerable. I think historically, we might, as humans, feel like if we say this thing makes me vulnerable, that then that other person will be like, haha, I have the ammunition. I have the ammunition to load my gun and I will shoot.
Only if they're a super narcissist, which we'll eventually talk about on our podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Narcissists. We've all dated those guys.
But most of the time, I think people would be responsive to that and not use it against you, hopefully.
One would hope.
Speaking of vulnerability,
even non-narcissists sometimes use things against you, though. I mean,
yeah, true that.
Yeah,
true that.
Yeah.
And as far as vulnerability goes, in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about first time sex, like
ever, or just first time with someone.
Ever, and also
losing your virginity, or like.
I think both, right?
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
And also, as far as like when you're going to have sex with a new partner, how do you know when to put your guard down? How do you know when it's okay to do that? When are you ready? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know you can trust them about cheating and sexually transmitted infections and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's coming up next in a couple weeks.
Yes. And I want you to know that from the get-go, I actually felt very safe with you. I felt like really, and I think it goes not just with our romantic relationships, but our friendships too, that this kind of conversation can be had with friendships too. If you're in a toxic friendship where you don't feel safe, where you can't be vulnerable, when the things you say are used against you as weaponized.
Yes. When you get that like creepy like feeling, don't listen to it. Yeah.
It's okay to break up with friends and family and lovers and whatever. It's okay. It's okay to protect yourself and have that boundary.
Yeah, because we have to be whole and smart and good so we can.
You're worth it. You're worth it.
Yeah. Anybody listening out there, you are worth it. Make sure you're taking care of yourself first. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes. Absolutely. I love it. And I love you. And thank you for doing this podcast with me.
You obviously make me feel safe as well, since you talked me into putting myself on this screen and my voice out into this world. You're like, I gotcha. Yeah, no, you have always been very, very good at making me feel safe about all this stuff. So thank you.
Yay. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. And tune in 2 weeks where we talk about first times.
First time. Goodness. Everybody stay safe and connected, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Bye.